Hello, Hateless Gaming here with a burner guide for you today. We have an agent burner, the blood burner, Cruor. He's one of the more difficult burners. If done wrong, you can easily lose a ship. Today, I will show you how not to lose a ship to fight burner Cruor. First thing we will need to go over is a ship we are flying. We've selected the Wolf because its base resists are very good for fighting the Cruor, allowing a massive passive buffer, which we are able to rep even when we have no cap, or when we get cap from our injector. For our fitting, in the high slots, we have 200mm autocannons and a T2 rocket launcher. If you're having trouble with CPU, you can change that T2 rocket launcher to a Metaphor. And then in the mids, we have a small Electrochem cap booster loaded with Navy cap booster 400s and a fleeting compact stasis Webifier. And then in the lows, we have 3 Gyrostabilizers, a Coreli A-type small armor repper, and a Coreli A-type thermal plater. You need this or better. I don't think there's better unless you go officer, so there are other types that also have the same stats, but you need to make sure you achieve this amount of rep, 144 HP every 4.5 seconds and 42 thermal resistance. For the rigs, we have a small anti-thermal pump and a small auxiliary nano pump. In our cargo, we have a butt ton of Navy Cat Booster 400s, some Republic Fleet Fusion ammo small, obviously for the small guns, and then some Caldari Navy Nova rockets, because that's what we want to do, is explosive damage. Although this ship is the cheapest to fly at 74 million ISK, it is probably the hardest skill-wise. I have maxed fitting skills and still rock 0 CPU. If you're having CPU issues with this fit, after changing to Metaphor rockets, we can change our Gyrostabilizers to either faction or Metaphor to lower the CPU usage, which will just lower DPS or increase DPS if you happen to use the faction ones. For spaceship command, or not spaceship command, but for skills, we will be needing Mimitar Frigate 5 in spaceship command, because that is required to fly the Wolf. And assault frigates, I would recommend at least 3, but I think 4 or greater is good. And then for engineering skills, sorry, I accidentally tabbed out. For engineering skills, we need advanced weapon upgrades 3. Thermodynamics needs to be 4 or greater. Capacitor management will give you extra capacitor, which helps you when being resistant to newts. And then power grid management helps fit ships, so that's also going to be required. In armor, we need, what is it? It is thermal armor compensation 4. This is required to get this thermal plating of a higher resist. And then we're also going to need repair systems 5 to get the most out of our armor repper, because we need every single bit that we can get. And then in gunnery, you're going to want all of your support skills to 4, and to be able to use T2 small, you're going to want to be able to use T2 small turrets, and all the support skills to 5, or sorry, all the support skills to 4, 5 is recommended. For missile skills, same story, we're going to want T2 rockets, but Metaphor works, and if you haven't trained all your rocket skills, it's not a big deal, it's just a little bit of DPS that we'll be losing. The ship doesn't use drones, so we don't use drones. And electronic systems, we need propulsion jamming. The higher this is, the easier it's going to be to run your Webifier. So I would recommend this at 4 or greater. 5 is advised. That's it for skills. I've gone over the fitting, the skills, and what's in our cargo. So we're going to go in and fight this burner. One thing to keep in mind is that we are going to be overheating. So thermodynamics is a highly recommended skill. So off we go. For a preset, you want to make sure that you're loaded with your ammo, and that your default keep at range is set to 10 kilometers or greater. What keeping at 10 kilometers or greater does is it lowers our traversal from our burner. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to lock it, and we're going to hit that keep at range button, and then we're going to get a Webifier on it. Keeping this Webifier running is extremely important because it lowers the traversal with Cruor. And then we're going to begin firing. And then now begins the dance. I call it the dance. This is why. Because we have no way to maintain capacitor. After we initially run out of capacitor, I like to make sure that my Webifier is still running for a whole cycle. If it continues running, normally it stays on, but sometimes it does get turned off. And we're going to overheat our small armor ripper by shift and clicking. Right, inject cap and immediately start repping. Every time you inject cap, you want to start repping right away, and you want to run that repper as hard as you can for the duration of having cap. Now what's going to happen, and sometimes what happens, is you take a lot of heat damage when you do this. I've had it happen on the first charge. I've taken 50% heat damage. After you get to about 50% heat damage, you're not going to want to run your repper overheated anymore, because it is possible once it gets to 50 that it completely burns out before you run out of cap, and that's extremely bad. When you run out of cap, you pretty much die. So we're going to continue this dance where we wait for our cap booster to recharge while also watching our Webifier, making sure that's on to keep his velocity down. So we're going to overheat this again and run another rep. Again, I'm not doing this perfectly because I'm so occupied with what I'm saying, but we want to make sure that we inject cap as often as possible and rep as often as possible. This is very important. It's the only way to stay alive in this mission. And you just have to keep on doing this while you whittle down his health, because he has a massive EHP buffer. So we just got to keep on doing this dance until he dies. Now, what we'll notice is we're approaching our reload on the rocket launchers. I use the rocket launchers running out of ammo as a mental reminder to check his armor. Once he gets below so much armor, we can begin overheating our guns. Overheating the guns makes it possible to use less cap boosters and makes it safer to do the missions if you're beginning to take too much heat in the mid. Which at this point in time, we haven't taken too much heat in the mid. So our rocket launcher is about to run out of ammo, and I'd say if you're below 25% or more, or better on damage, you can start overheating your guns. You do not want to overheat your rockets. If you overheat your rockets, you're not getting much out of it, and it's just going to bleed heat damage all over the place, and you're not going to be a happy camper. So we continue this dance. Now, on top of making sure our Webifier is done, on top of making sure that this isn't taking too much damage, since we're overheating our guns, we have to keep an eye on gun heat damage. Normally, if you wait until 25% armor to begin overheating guns, it's not a big issue for... They normally won't burn out, but you do want to make sure that they don't burn out, because if any of your weapons burn out, it's very easy to die. And as you see, we just killed him. So that's pretty much what it is. You play this dance of injecting cap and running your repper. You do this back and forth until Burner Cruor dies. And then we always check for loot. In this instance, we didn't get anything good. I hope that when I do one of these guys, I get a faction drop to show you what kind of cool things can drop from these guys. But they drop awesome loot, so you always want to check their loot. That's all I have for you guys this time. Make sure you repair your ship every time you go out and do a burner. Make sure you restock your ships, refill cap boosters every time you go out, because this ship is only capable of carrying 2 runs of doing this mission perfectly. If you make any mistakes and you have to use more cap boosters on either of those 2 runs, if you take without restocking your ship on either of those 2 runs, you are not going to be a happy camper. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. So fly safe, have a good day. If you like what you see, be sure to give me a thumbs up and click that subscribe button. I will be doing more burner videos in the future. And fly safe.